Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is Danny B back for another session. I appreciate you guys being so patient with these vlogs. It's all divinely inspired and Holy Spirit led. So if He tells me to wait, I wait. If He tells me to move, I move. So earlier I dropped a video about my testimony and how I grew up. Just kind of like a vague overview of my life. In the streets and how I came to Jesus, kind of thing. So I wanted to talk about a little bit about my addiction and my alcoholism, and how God has essentially brought me through that. So if you have watched the last video, then you know that I grew up in a really drug-infested household, really violent, alcoholic home. Both my parents were drug addicts and alcoholics. My dad more so an alcoholic than a drug addict, and my mom would just do anything she could for whatever reason. I don't exactly know why. But I believe that the spirit of addiction to really anything, but especially drugs and alcohol, especially alcohol, is a generational thing, and it's passed on from generation to generation. The Bible talks about this a little bit. It says that we have generational spirits that attach to us that just are passed down. I believe it's in the Old Testament. I can't exactly pinpoint where, but just so you know that, again, my dad was an alcoholic his whole life. He struggled with that. He actually died from acute alcoholism. And I've been an alcoholic my whole life. So I remember when I was about 6 years old, my dad would pass out and we would steal, sips of beer from the can he was drinking, or we would steal a beer here and there out of the fridge. My sister and I would. She might tell you something different. I don't know exactly what she remembers, but that's what I remember. And fast forward to when I was about 10 or 11, I started stealing the actual liquor, like whiskey, vodka, out of my parents' liquor cabinet. And it's something I struggle with my whole life. I've almost died 3 times from drinking. My pancreas has went out. So this disease is trying to kill me. It's actively trying to kill me. Throughout my 20s, man, I don't remember a whole lot about my 20s, but I do remember trying to get sober a bunch of times. I finally did about 27, 28. I was sober for about 5 years, and then I had relapsed. Went to prison, and essentially, see, this is how good God is, man. In 1 Corinthians chapter 4, Paul talks about how God takes the less noble, the less honorable, the weak people of the world, that the world looks at weak, those that have no self-control or lack of self-control, self-discipline, and he turns those people into the wise, into those that he calls his children, into royalty, into authority, and that's exactly what he's done for me, man. So June will be 4 years. June 26, 2016 is the last time I took a drink. February, in between like February 16th to 20th is the last time I've done any kind of illegal narcotic. So I'm on a good little run, and I'm grateful every day for it. I do struggle. I do have struggles. It's not like it's gone. I have cravings and all kinds of stuff I deal with every now and again. But I just pray. I open the Bible and I pray. That being said, I want to give some background on addiction. So the word addiction comes from a Greek word, and basically what it means, the Greek root word of it, basically means a slave. Okay, and how it would work is you were either sold into slavery, or you were taken to court for a debt that you paid or your family had to pay, and you were given over into slavery. And that's where the root word of addiction comes from. And this is how good God is our word for addiction essentially means a slave to. Okay, you were bought and sold into. Okay, and if you're addicted to anything, it doesn't have to be alcohol, it doesn't have to be drugs, it could be pornography, it could be food, it could be working out, it could be working. There's workaholics. You are a slave to it. You have no control over it, and you're powerless essentially. The first step of Alcoholics Anonymous is we came to believe that our life is unmanageable and we're powerless of alcoholism or to alcoholism, meaning we cannot stop on our own accord. So our addictions, we have no self-control or no discipline over. And that's where Jesus comes in. That's where God comes in. It took him not necessarily sending me to prison because I did what I did and there was no God involved in doing what I did. But I had to go to prison in order for me to accept that I did have a problem and allow God to work in my life, in order for me to understand that this is a real problem and this is something that I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. Not only me, but my family. Not necessarily my sisters and my brother and my dad, and of course they deal with it, but more so my immediate family, like my kids, my girlfriend, the girl that wants to spend the rest of her life with me, but essentially my kids, right? How can I be a father from prison? And there's ways to be a father from prison, but if you have the option to be a father from the streets or be a father from prison, I'm sure 9.5 out of 10 people are going to choose to be a father from the streets. But I sat in a jail cell, partly because of my addiction, partly because I was doing things outside of God, and that led me to prison. And that was my consequence, for not listening to God, not following God, even though He has worked wonders and miracles in my life, from going to prison and seeing that, He made a way for me to get out of prison. As long as I took the opportunity, I'm out. But that's what it took for me to understand that this is a real, I'm a slave to it, and I need to bow down either to my addiction or to Jesus. And I chose to bow down to Jesus, which I believe led me here.